We start with Birmingham City, who have lost at home for the first time in 29 league games. It's after they were beaten 3-2 by Hull City to power the pressure further on Chris Davies. 3-word reviews for Hull. Nick says, Jakirovic deserves credit. Hull City Oz says, Goalfest mayhem. Lee says, up those Tigers. Miles says, Justin's banker mauled for Birmingham. Shah says, Jack Robinson cabbage. Yeah, a crazy game. We had goals, scrapping, a silly red card and an own goal. And most of that was just Jack Robinson alone.
Sorry. Yeah. It was. I kept seeing live updates, obviously, on social media of this game from journalists who were at the game. And it was just moment after moment. And you just come away from it and you just go, I fucking love this league. It's just great. It's chaos. It's brilliant. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, we also, one thing I haven't even mentioned is we nearly had a goalkeeper scoring as well. James Beadle went up for a corner for Birmingham in the 91st minute and possibly should have done better with it. But yeah, this game was absolutely great. Not sure Jack Robinson will agree because he had another stinker, 2 sendings offs in 3 games now for him, as well as the own goal. This red appeared to be something he said to the ref, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, he got given a yellow for saying something, carried on talking to the ref, and was instantly given the red card straight afterwards. So it wasn't on a booking or anything. So what on earth he said, I have no idea, but really should be expecting better from someone as experienced as him, really, shouldn't we, Justin?
Well, he's 32 years old. I'm 31, and I know if I've just been booked, I'm not going to drop the referee anything derogatory as I run past him. I might say,
and you've not played hundreds of games at championship level either.
Exactly. I wouldn't even do it on a Sunday morning, where the referees probably wouldn't care, to be honest with you, and probably give it you back. But nonetheless, have some respect. And like you said, there was the own goal and he was booked twice within seconds. But it's the fact that Chris Davies called him out in his post-match presser without actually calling him out. He said he was let down by certain players and certain things costing the game, which was Jack Robinson, to be blunt. And I've said this time and time again on this show. I think he's a useful squad player and he's got good experience. Man's a liability, though. He really is.
At centre half, it's I've never been massively keen on him, I've got to say, but it's now 2 stupid sendings off in a Birmingham shirt, and he's only been there a month and a half, so it's really not good going. The other thing that has to get some coverage is the big melee in this game. I've watched it several times now. Perfect example, Justin, of scenes we don't like to see, but actually, we bloody love.
It was caused by a couple of big tackles, which I actually thought were all pretty fair, to be honest with you. It was just full-blooded football, which is exactly what you want. Exactly what you want.
It's one of those great moments as well, where a team has collectively lost its head, so they're just kicking everyone.
But the team loses its head, and then every single staff member on the sidelines completely loses their head as well, because there's points where I don't actually know which side of the dugout is who's at St Andrews. I can't remember if it's Chris Davies on the right or whatever. It's irrelevant because they just went at it. They just merged into one big ball. It's a bit like a Looney Tunes situation where where they start scrapping and they're just in a massive ball and all you see is like the old fist coming out and dust. It was that. It was really, really good stuff. Brilliant stuff. And I think only Ollie McBurney was booked in that entirety. I think that's what I saw on social media.
Yeah, a bit mad, but it was very enjoyable seeing the melee. Should say, in amongst it, the Hull manager, Sergei Jakirovic, claimed he was told to fuck off by Chris Davies, the Birmingham manager, and also claimed he was told to fuck off back to Gracia by a member of Birmingham security staff, which is obviously not nice. Birmingham have put out a statement denying this, but it does unfortunately make the fracas less enjoyable. Nonetheless, a significant result for all the wrong reasons for Birmingham City. Their first loss at home in the league since April 2024, and it means just 1 win in 8 for Chris Davies. And while there may have been some questions about the refereeing in this game from certain sections of the Birmingham fraternity, those things I've read out just there, Justin, not good.
It isn't, and obviously that's going to increase pressure on the parties that be. Obviously, Chris Davies is going to be one of them, and it is a bit of a shame because I actually thought Birmingham looked better in this game. I will be very honest about that. They were aggressive. as we saw. They were on the front foot at times, and I don't think we've seen that since the opening day. And they actively got into Hull's box and asked them a lot of questions. But what Birmingham and Chris Davis needs is results, and unfortunately, the fickleness of football, it's not going to. It's not how it's going to play out. So I think a lot of fans, or the respective feelings and emotions around football, you'd rather have a 1-0 win and play poorly than play brilliantly and lose 3-2 as I think Birmingham did here. But as I say, to play devil's advocate, I thought they were let down by a very experienced player, because Jack Robinson gets sent off at 2-1, and him going off at that point puts Birmingham on the back foot, makes it all the more harder for them to get back into the game. So I have a lot of sympathy for Chris Davis here.
Yeah, well, heading into this game, goals had been a problem for Birmingham. They had scored just 4 in 7 heading into this, and they did score 2 here. One of them was a penalty, which wasn't a penalty. For me, the fouls happened outside the box, but they were better to an extent, Justin. You're right there. They had 29 shots in this game. So they had a lot of efforts. I don't think they had many particularly big chances, but still, there were elements of improvement here. But at the end of the day, it's another loss. And that's what's ultimately Chris Davis is there to do. He's to get this Birmingham side fighting for promotion, and they're just not doing that now. I think when you look at the amount of possession they've had in the league this season, they're really struggling to convert that into chances. It is a stat for you, Justin. We're 10 games in now. Birmingham have only scored 5 goals before the 90th minute all season. So that just goes to show they're not really making the most of the possession they've got and the talent they've got at their disposal either. And they're leaking goals too. Obviously, it's not helped when Jack Robinson keeps getting sent off all the time. But Birmingham's biggest strength last season was their defence. 31 conceded all season. And this season, they've conceded 14. So nearly half of last season's tally after just 10 games. But the most important thing is they're not winning and are now sat 17th, which will be a fair way below where Birmingham's owners were expecting to be at this stage in the season.
Yeah, just to fall on your previous point there, everything you say is valid, but I think that's perhaps the transition from League One to Championship that we're seeing, because you mentioned that Birmingham's strength in League One was their defence, and it was. They also, I think when you're in League One, you can rely on individual players a lot more than you can in the Championship, and that's what we're finding now is the individuals aren't really stepping up to the mark as much as they need to. And Birmingham's quality in possession is lacking, especially when you're converting possession into chances. So I think what we're seeing now is that transition from League One to the Championship really come to the fore. But as you said, Ryan, that they're 17th, and yeah, it is rightly, compared to what the owners will be wanting after 10 games, is going to be nowhere near where they expected. But again, to play the optimist in this scenario, they are coming up from League One, as I was just mentioning. Expectations, I think, maybe do have to be tempered with that in mind. And whilst they are 17th, they are just 5 points short of 6th place. So they are literally 3 good games from being in the playoff places. That's not paving over any of the poor quality we've seen so far. They do need to improve, and Chris Davis needs to find a balance in his team that I've been saying for a while now, that he's struggling to find his right cohesion with his starting 11. I think once he gets that, they will start getting results, but they need to come sooner rather than later.
Birmingham have got 2 away games this week, Preston and Bristol City. Feels like a big week for Chris Davies, doesn't it? Considering they've only got 4 points from 5 away games this season, there needs to be a big upturn in multiple different ways. We should give a quick word to Hull, Justin. Back-to-back wins for them. They've now beaten Birmingham, Sheffield United and Southampton, which at the start of the season would have looked like an unbelievable set of results. Obviously, context needs to be kept in mind for each of those sides after pretty poor starts for each of them. But despite Hull's troubles over the summer, and many predicting them to go down, they're going pretty well, aren't they?
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that I think 90% of creators that I know had Hull to go down, and rightly so. But I think
I will just point out for everyone, I was one of those who didn't have Hull to go down.
Where did you have Hull in your table, Ryan?
I think I had them 20th.
Okay, good, great, fantastic.
I did think they'd go down though.
Fair enough. On a technicality, you've got me. But I think we do need to really praise Hull, because They still have a lot of vulnerabilities, which I think is very obvious. Defensively, I still think they need a lot of work, but we've got to give some credit, a lot of credit to Sergei Yurkevich for coming in and tapping into the quality that is actually in this squad already. Because going forwards, they're so much fun. They really are. They're the entertainers of the division. And it'll be interesting to see how far they can go, despite having zero control, I think, in 90% of their games this season, probably all of them to some extent anyway. But look, he's winning me over with this chaotic football team. It's really good to see. Good to see Liam Miller really contribute as well, because obviously he assisted Joe Gelhardt, what proved to be the winner, with some lovely footwork. So yeah, really, really good performance. And yeah, be the first away team to win at St Andrews since April 2024. Yeah, impressive stuff.
Yeah, really impressive stuff. For full clarity, I did have Preston to go down in their 8th, so I can't exactly blow my own trumpet too much. But yeah, Hull are really entertaining to watch, aren't they? They're shipping a fair few goals. Only Wednesday have conceded more than them now, but they're also the second top scorers in the division behind only Coventry. It's almost like the heart attack football which we were promised under Tim Volter this time last year, isn't it? So
what a throwback.
It's taken a while to come, but we've got there eventually. But look, it's obvious where they need to improve. I hope it doesn't, though, because it's very good fun to watch. And as long as Hull keep scoring goals, they're going to keep getting results, aren't they? So that's all very good. The pressure is growing on Chris Davis, of course, but it's also massively piled on Liam Manning. It's after Norwich lost 1-0 at home to his former club, Bristol City. 3-word reviews for Bristol City. Phil on our Patreon says, winning, feeling back. Zane says, Strubus cider army. Daniel says, away day delight. Tom says, have that, Manning. For Norwich, Chambo says, abject, embarrassing shite. Colin says, rotting top down. Alex says, sack Manning now. Yeah, basically, Liam Manning's worst nightmare. 4 losses in 5. The latest coming against the side he so unceremoniously left in the summer. Oh dear, Justin.
It's something that we speculated about in our preview episode on Friday, and this was the worst case scenario. It was bad because I know I mentioned, if Bristol City score in the first minute, it would be terrible because the atmosphere turns toxic. And if they score in the last minute, it's going to be an awful atmosphere at the end of the game. But this was obviously somewhere in between. But actually, the way Norwich played just exemplified how much worse it probably could have been, or it was, because this was awful. It's an awful performance. It really, really was. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. And like you said, this was a nightmare for Liam Manning. Halloween coming a week early for the guy. It was bad, really bad.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Bristol City fans were absolutely loving it, and rightly so, because they felt they'd been jilted by Liam Manning in the summer, and here they are getting one over him very quickly. It's like seeing your ex arguing with their new partner. You shouldn't enjoy it, but it's incredibly satisfying at the same time, as you will have experienced multiple times, Justin. But look, Bristol City were good value. Bristol City were good value for the win as well. They clearly felt like it was a big occasion for them. They lived up to it. Can't really say the same about Norwich, who, as you were alluding to, was so poor once again, and it got toxic at various stages in this game. There were loud boos after the goal went in and at full time. Chants from the Bristol City fans of you getting sacked in the morning, which I think many Norwich fans were joining in with. But I thought it was really interesting, Justin, in a video I watched, there were Norwich fans chanting, "We want Napper out." Obviously, alluding to the sporting director, Ben Napper, someone we've given a lot of criticism to, but not someone who's really had chants directed at him previously. So it just goes to show there's a lot of frustration to go around at Carrow Road. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's always bad when you see players remonstrating with supporters at the end of the game. It's usually in away games, though, isn't it? So to see this at a home game, of course, I'm talking about Liam Gibbs, who at the end of the game was talking with fans. It wasn't anything overly passionate, if you like. It was actually looked like a very composed discussion. But all that does is show how bad it is and how much of a disconnect is growing between the supporters and the football club. And I keep saying I feel for Liam Manning. I really do, because he's getting the flack. Rightly so, things do need to improve, and I will criticise him at some point over the next couple of minutes. But the conversation needs to once again be redirected at the strategic decision makers who, one, sacked a manager who had them in the playoffs, David Wagner. 2, sacked a manager who they appointed to change the style of play and take them forward, Janis Hothturup. And 3, spent more than £50 million on what is looking like complete guff. They're a state. They are an absolute state. And when you see opposition batter you at home and you lose another home game to what was a fortress of a ground, no one is taking accountability. I don't think even Liam Manning's taking accountability. He's blaming the players, but there needs to be communication from the top
to really try and quell what is happening right now, because this football club is out of control. It really, really is.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with anything you say there, Justin. You absolutely hit the nail on the head with pretty much everything you say there. This was a club which had a formidable home record. They went unbeaten for an entire year, didn't they, not long ago? And now they've lost 6 games on the bounce at home. It's ridiculous. And I mean, poor Liam Manning, he must regret leaving Bristol City at this stage. There may have been personal reasons for doing so, which we won't get into, but on the face of it, it looked like he moved because of more resources to work with at a club with recent experience of being in the Premier League. And everything's gone very Pete Tong, hasn't it? While his former side have carried on where they left off without him. And while I still think the lion's share of the blame should be reserved for Ben Napper, it's becoming increasingly hard to defend Liam Manning. And in football, it's almost always the manager who is made to pay for things going wrong. But then the question I have is, say Liam Manning gets sacked tomorrow, are things going to instantly improve for Norwich? I don't think so. I think their decline has happened over the past 12 to 18 months, and it's going to take time to turn that around. The alarming thing is how much they've declined in such a short period of time, so much so that I've seen many Norwich fans say that they're in a relegation battle. So with that being said, do you think they're in a relegation battle, Justin?
I think they are in more trouble than perhaps we are thinking about. Do you know what I mean? It's not really at the forefront of everyone's mind because we're 10 games in, there's a lot of football to be played, but I do worry about Norwich. We talk about decline. I think this decline started under Stuart Webber, and I think David Wagner did a hell of a good job to paper over the cracks, because their best summer of recruitment they've had since 2018 was the summer they signed Shane Duffy, Jack Stacey, Ashley Barnes. The summer they did it on the cheap. And you've got to go back to the summer they signed likes of Stiepermann and I'm trying to think of players off the top of my head, but I'm not going to. But that summer, Norwich fans will know. But if you look at the teams that shouldn't go down that are down there, i.e. the teams that have deeper squads, good players within them, have spent money, your Derby, Southampton, Sheffield United, I think Norwich are the most likely to be in a relegation battle of all those, because I don't know if the squad that that Ben Napper and the recruitment team has put together is actually any good or not. I really don't know, because from what we've seen probably since the start of 2025 onwards is really, really bad football, bad individuals just not performing where they need to perform, or not performing where their valuation is perhaps should be.
Yeah, that's a very reserved way of putting it, because £50 million Norwich have spent since Ben Napper came in as the sporting director, and they do not look like they've improved by £50 million, do they? And I did make the point back in the summer, Norwich finished 13th last season, right? Despite having 2 players who are in the top 4 of the top goal scoring charts, if they didn't have Boya Sainz and Josh Sargent, where would they have ultimately finished? Now, when I made that point at the time, I was expecting Sargent to leave, which he obviously hasn't done. But his form's significantly dropped off now as well. Yeah. He's without a goal in 6, which is really bad by his standards. And Norwich have failed to win in that time, which I don't think is a coincidence. So I'm struggling to see who else is going to drag them forwards when they're struggling, and that's why Norwich are ultimately in this really big mess. Norwich have got Derby away in midweek, which looks like a big game for both sides, doesn't it? Justin, we'll have a look back at how we did with our predictions in Friday's preview show, and it's a bad weekend for me, for a change. I drew a blank with Leicester failing to beat Portsmouth, which was my banker, as well as Watford failing to beat Sheffield United as my outsider, which we will discuss shortly. But Justin Peach has got going again. After just 1 point in his last 3 preview shows, he's got 2 points this weekend with his outsider of Bristol City to beat Norwich, so you must be relieved, Justin.
I am, actually. I genuinely am. It's been a stressful. I know how managers feel. I can fully sympathise. You go a couple of weeks drawing blanks, tough, really, really tough. So, the relief has left me. I'm in a good place now, and this is where the confidence and the run starts. That's right.
Yeah, all this talk about managers feeling the pressure, no one ever thinks about the poor podcasters, do they? That means the score is now 10-8 to myself, all very much to play for, with several games to go. Justin will have a quick break. After that, we'll talk about a mixed few days for the 2 Sheffield sides. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. And Sheffield United won for just the second time this season and the first time at home. They beat Watford 1-0. 3-word reviews for Sheffield United. Dan says, we won one. FG says, about bastard time. Blades Views says, finally showing cojones. Nedski says, we're not bottom. For Watford, Nicholas says, absolute dog shit. Simon says, utter total shambles. Yeah, Javi Gracia's first game back at Watford. Not going to plan, but a much needed results for Chris Wilder.
There's a quote at the end of the game that I absolutely love from Chris Wilder. And he said, it was in the 93rd minute, and I got asked a question by one of the punters. He said, why do you do it? I've got to say that for about 10 seconds. I scratched my head and I thought, why do I do it? And that is the quote of a man who's really felt it, who's absolutely felt it. And there's a clip at the end that Sheffield United put out themselves of Chris Wilder, just the relief coming into him, getting that 3 points. It's a massive 3 points. You can't understate it. It's the first home win of the season, for goodness sake. And Bramall Lane is a tough place to go. And I think that quote and also the clip that I just mentioned really does go to show just how much of a much needed result and how important this is to both Chris Wilder and the football club.
Yeah, absolutely. There was no one who needed a win more than Sheffield United was there. So I imagine there must have been this huge release of relief around Bramall Lane, not just with Chris Wilder, throughout the entire club. I think it would be difficult to say it was Sheffield United back with a bang, because other than the goal, which was a rather scruffy one to say the very least, I can't recall them creating an awful lot. And Watford actually had the better chances. Sheffield United were really clinging on towards the end as well. But Chris Wilder won't care. They just needed a win, particularly at home, with this being their first home victory of the season. He said afterwards, we needed a platform and we just can't waste it. And he's obviously right. They've got 2 away games this week, Blackburn and then facing his old friend Paul Heckingbottom at Preston. So they have to build on this result, don't they, if they want to make anything of this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an important thing to really acknowledge, because this win's important, but if you follow it with 2 defeats, it's almost redundant, because it's a 3-game week or a 3-game week, and that's a real chance to get the results and build and keep building and utilise the quality we know they have in their squad. But I think what separates this game from what we've seen of Sheffield United so far is you say the goal's scrappy. I actually look at that and go, that was beautiful, because what I saw was a team driving. It was an unwavering belief to get on the end of a scrappy goal that was made by themselves, by pressing and winning the ball back, getting it into the box and getting on the end of a ball. That's what I saw. It wasn't your sexy, your sexy thing, but sometimes we need something like that. We need a scrappy thing like that, which makes us believe that these players do really care, and that's what we saw. And I think that can really propel them into a game week that we mentioned. They've got Preston, Blackburn. They're 2 good games to come up against, because they're 2 well organised teams, or can be well organised, but they're not going to trouble you like other teams do, because that's not the game. So I think Sheffield United have got a real chance here.
Yeah, well, absolutely. They'll definitely be fancying their chances in that Blackburn game, in particular, with them also struggling, who we'll talk about later on. And look, there's definitely creases that need to be ironed out in this very creased shirt that Sheffield United are wearing, particularly going forwards, because that's been their big bugbear all season long. I look at someone like Louis Barry, really struggled in this game. But there's definitely improvement there, because you had Callum O'Hare, who had a great game. Sam McCallum at left back was unbelievable. It's been a long time since I've seen him play that well. And they've done all this despite Gustavo Harmer missing as well. He looks like he's going to be missing the games this week. So let's see if they do build upon it this coming week, because if they can, then Sheffield United may be a side who we see quickly rise up the table. There was also a debut in this game for former Dutch international Jaro Riederwald, who signed for Sheffield United this week. Midfielder who used to play for Crystal Palace. Will be interesting to see how he gets on. What did we think of Javi Gracia's first game back at Watford, Justin?
Mixed. All you need to do is to summarise this return is search the reaction of Watford fans to the team news. That's it. Yeah. That's it. That will tell you all you need to know. Whether it was said in jest or not from Watford fans, a lot were saying that Paolo Pezzolano would have taken something from this. And given the form that he was in prior to the international break, prior to getting sacked, Hard to disagree with that, but at the same time, it is Javi Gracia's first game back in charge. But actually, when most of the fans come out of the game speculating that the owner picks a team, it's not a good sign. It wasn't a good performance, and I do agree, when you're coming up against one of the teams who have had the worst starts in Championship history, you expect a little bit more, and we didn't get it. And again, we saw the same players benched, like Quadwo Bar. Yeah, big changes are needed, but I'm not going to get too carried away and say this is the start of a really poor run under Javi Gracia. Give him some time.
I think you are maybe being a bit harsh with the performance, because Watford were okay. They had some good chances. At the same time, Michael Cooper in the Sheffield United goal didn't have anything to do, really. And we have got to keep in mind this is against the Sheffield United side who had lost 8 in 9 heading into this. So, yeah, it is quite hard to judge what level Watford are at in this game. But you're absolutely right when you talk about the team selection, because Gracia is synonymous with playing a sort of 4-2-2-2 with 2 deep midfielders and then 2 advanced ones, isn't he? Mm-hmm. When he was at Watford before, he had Roberto Pereira as one of those advanced midfielders, a brilliant player on his day. Against Sheffield United, Gracia chose a 36-year-old Moussa Sissoko, who I don't think I'm going to cause much outrage here by saying he looks considerably past his best. And that just shows how different the task is for Gracia this time around. He had some really talented players at Watford before, and now he's working with a squad which, I've said plenty of times, I don't think is that good, really, apart from a handful of players. One of those players is Quadro Bar, who, as you say, I'm surprised that he continues to be left out. Something Paolo Pezzolano got a lot of criticism for. Maybe that's, I don't know, maybe there's more to that situation than we know, because he's obviously very talented. So why does he keep being benched? Who knows? I will tell you one thing, though, Justin. Gracia could have really done with getting a result here, because Watford's upcoming games are absolutely brutal. They've got West Brom in midweek, then Coventry away, then Middlesbrough, and then Ipswich away. So, Javi Gracia, homecoming, mate. Good luck.
Oh, yeah. They're winners in the last 11 away games as well, which it's not healthy, really. But I think the key thing that Gracia needs to discover with this team is a style of play that's identifiable, because I don't think that's what we've got so far. And obviously, when you're playing a cart horse in midfield in Sissoko, are you really going to be able to establish a style of play? I don't think so. So yeah, get that sorted quickly, and maybe this run of games that they got might be a little bit easier.
We'll see, because as far as runs of games go, that's basically as awful as it gets right now, isn't it? Let's go to Sheffield Wednesday, where it's been a pretty depressing few days for them, and it was topped off with a 2-1 defeat away at Charlton. 3-word review for Charlton. Ed says, scrappy, valiant, optimistic for Wednesday. Matt says, it gets worse. Justin, what's the last thing Sheffield Wednesday needed with a winding up petition looming and a threadbare squad? Probably their only goalkeeper being sent off. Ethan Horvath, what on earth are you doing, lad?
Yeah, he was later than any of the wages that have been paid lately. Does he need to make that challenge in the 97th minute? I don't think he does. Come on, mate. But yeah, it was a hilariously bad day for him, wasn't it? He's allowed 1 or 2 because he's largely been performing pretty well in a Wednesday shirt, to be honest with you. But yeah, he's gone proper Harold Schumacher in the 97th minute. Honestly, it was such a red card. It was so late. It was madness, and probably shadows on what was a better second half performance from Sheffield Wednesday. I just don't think he needs to make that challenge in the 97th minute. I don't. Look, bigger picture, mate. Come on.
Yeah, I think, you know what? You might be right, because he has absolutely wiped him out, hasn't he? And I also enjoyed how Horvath was lying there after the challenge with his legs up in the air like he was giving birth. It was just a really funny sight to see. And he wasn't even looking at the referee when he was given the red card. So I hope he does know that he's been sent off. But also got to be mentioned, Nathan Jones was absolutely fuming with the referee, who took a while to give Horvath the red card. Yeah. He said, I could not believe what I was seeing. They finally got to the correct decision, praise the Lord. I would like to understand his thought process. You will not see an easier decision barring him clubbing him over the head with a baseball bat. Which, It's a bit dramatic, but what else do you really expect with Nathan Jones?
Yeah.
But the other thing is about this sending off, it did mean that we had one of the greatest sights in football, which is an outfield player in goal. This time Liam Palmer, who did manage to keep a clean sheet for the 3 minutes that he was in goal, so fair play to him. The problem now for Wednesday, Justin, is that Ethan Horvath was their emergency goalkeeper, who they were allowed to bring in after an injury to their only other goalkeeper, Pierce Charles. But they're not allowed to sign another emergency keeper, and Charles is still injured, which means that 18-year-old goalkeeper Logan Stretch is probably going to have to come in midweek, who has never played a game of senior football before. And who have Wednesday got in midweek, I hear you ask? Second in the table, Middlesbrough. Great.
You mentioned goalkeeper problem, but what I see is a man going in goal when the chips are against Sheffield Wednesday and he keeps a clean sheet. Is there a goalkeeper problem if Liam Palmer's available? I don't think there is.
I mean, he's a pretty versatile guy, isn't he? He's played in loads of positions before.
He's Wednesday through and through, come on.
Whether this is the time to give him his full debut in goal, I'm not sure.
If there's a season to do it, when you know you're going to get relegated, when you know a point deduction could come in and ultimately resign you to League One, fuck it. Do it. Do it. Do it, you cowards. Come on.
Maybe they'll do it. I don't know. I will say Logan Stretch, a great name for a goalkeeper, isn't it? So that's one reason why I think I'm siding more with giving Stretchy Lad.
Name, isn't it?
It's like if AI made a goalkeeper, isn't it? Logan Stretch. But yeah, at the time of recording, we don't know how long Horvath is going to be suspended for. It might be just that Middlesbrough game, but he could get a 3-match ban depending on what the referee's match report says.
Apparently he didn't see it, did he? So he'd be all right.
But yeah, we'll apparently find out tomorrow what the verdict is there. Whatever the case, when it comes to goalkeeper options, Sheffield Wednesday are definitely stretched. Charlton are up to 9th with this win. 3 wins from 5 at the Valley now this season. Can't believe that joke didn't get a better reaction. The two where Charlton did get a win at the Valley this season were against Leicester, where they definitely shouldn't have lost, and the South London derby against Millwall, where they were comfortably winning before that daft sending off by Kane Ramsey. Otherwise, the Valley proving to be a tough place to go, Justin.
Yeah, that's what will keep them in a division. And I know that there'll be sort of listeners going, keep them in a division. What? They're doing well. They're high in the table. They're nowhere near the bottom 3. But, you know, they're a team coming from League One. They're going to go through periods. But like I said, if you're strong at home, that will keep you in a division and that will give you a platform to keep building. But the Valley is a loud, horrible place to go, managed by the worst manager to have in a dugout with a baying home crowd. And that is the perfect recipe for Championship survival. And Nathan Jones is an expert in cooking that together. Do want to see a bit more of a killer instinct from Charlton at times. Charlie Kelman is one. You know, League One Golden Boot last season. Need to see that because he had 2 good chances after some really, really good work from James Breen in this game. Dropped a bit in the second half, but look, strong home form. As I said, that can keep you in a division. Nathan Jones is the man to do it.
You were giving him a shit in midweek for putting
Charlie
Kelman
this is why, but he's taken the piss here by missing them 2 chances. I give him praise and he does me.
Yeah, in my YouTube video where I was ranking strikers, I didn't rank him very highly and Justin was giving me shit. But here he is. He's having a go at him
into the right places, though, isn't he? Come on.
Yeah, he's not fucking scoring though, is he? I think if we're being completely candid, Charlton weren't at their best against Sheffield Wednesday. A better team with more options than Wednesday may have got a result. But look, I've been singing their praises a lot this season because I've been impressed with them on many occasions. This may not have been one of those occasions, but I'm sure I can let them off because I think Charlton, you mentioned them staying up. I don't think that's going to be an issue at the way things are going because they've been bloody good so far. Justin, we'll have another break. After that, we'll talk about 4 wins on the bounce for Coventry City and Stoke City, who are up to 3rd. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Let's go to the team who are once again top of the Championship. It's Coventry City, who made it 4 wins on the bounce after a 2-0 victory at home to Blackburn. 3 red reviews for Coventry. Ryan says, result flattered us. Elhod says 3-minute blitz. Alex says 2 magic moments. Luke says Frank Lampard effect. For Blackburn, Dave on our Patreon says lack of goals. Jack says no clinical edge. James says hello League One. Tom says we're going down. Yeah, not one of Coventry's flashiest wins by any means, although that's a pretty ridiculous standard they've set themselves this season. But they just keep going, Justin.
Yeah, I was going to say, compared to the high standard they set themselves, this was a pretty garbage performance. Of course, I'm being I'm saying it in jest, but you can have off days. You can, and that's always going to happen to a lot of teams after the international break. A lot of managers will acknowledge that. You just need to make sure you don't drop off too much and it becomes a habit, because if you look at this game, Blackburn had a couple of chances, nothing in high volume or really clear cut, but it was perhaps an awkward game where Cole Rushworth earned his clean sheet. But it's perhaps a win where you look at the bigger picture, where it's 10 games unbeaten, it's 5 clean sheets in a row. Brandon Thomas-Asante can't stop scoring, who, I'll make the big claim here, I think he's been better than Haji Wright this season. I know Haji Wright, people will go, well, he's top goal scorer. Haji Wright's missed a fair few big chances. Brandon Thomas-Asante has been clinical, and his goal showed that here. So, yeah, as I say, it's one of those games where you look at the bigger picture here, which is unbeaten, clean sheets, players are scoring. Brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely didn't expect Brandon Thomas-Asante to be as good as he has been, but you're probably not far wrong with the big claim you made there, Justin. But yeah, the scoreline definitely didn't reflect this game. Coventry weren't great. Actually, that's been a bit generous. They were actually poor in this game. For the first hour, Blackburn were the better side, and then 2 pretty spectacular quick-fire goals from Victor Torp, again, Brandon Thomas-Asante, again, and that basically knocked the stuffing out of Blackburn, and that was about that. And look, Blackburn aren't great. I think if Coventry were facing a better side, they probably would have lost that unbeaten record this weekend. But at the same time, it's that old saying, isn't it? It's a sign of a good team when you're still getting results and not playing well. This was definitely not one of their best performances, but they're still top. And if they keep winning, that's all they're going to bloody care about, isn't it, Justin?
Exactly. And like I said, it's the bigger picture here. And they've had some 10 out of 10 performances here, throughout the season. So this certainly is a poor one in comparison. But I think it's one of those, if you look at it from a Blackburn point of view, they had a couple of decent chances, but nothing clear-cut or in high volume. And maybe Coventry would have risen their game if they came up against different opposition. We don't know. But at the end of the day, they won 2-0 without having to get out of second or third gear. They did so with being very clinical and scoring 2 really, really good goals. And they managed the game relatively well because, as I say, Blackburn didn't open them up time and time again. And that's it. That's what you're going to take away from it. So I think you can only measure this game off the next game. So if they do drop off again in the next game, that's where you start to go, oh, hang on a minute, is this them just dropping off now? We can't tell until midweek or even next weekend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You mentioned the games they've got coming up. They've got 2 winnable games, it's fair to say. Portsmouth away in midweek and then Watford at home. So can they keep up this incredible winning run? We shall see. A team definitely not on a winning run is Blackburn. 6 losses in 9 for them. Only the 2 Sheffield sides now below them in the table. I think it's fair to say that losing away at Coventry isn't going to be a huge needle mover in terms of Valérien Ismaël's future, because they weren't expected to get anything here and actually played quite well for most of it. But I look at their next game, Sheffield United at home. What a big game that is for both sides, and possibly for Valérien Ismaël's future as well. You know, at home against the Sheffield United side, who, as we've mentioned loads of times, have lost a lot of games this season.
Yeah, it's creativity that's a problem for Valérien Ismaël, because they don't give a hell of a lot of chances away. Because like I said, I thought they set up pretty well against Coventry. They pressed well, they were aggressive, but they just lack anything interesting going forwards, which is pretty remarkable. But at the same time, I think that drop off that started last season. It really, really did. And like I said, they've got Sheffield United in midweek. Is it a winnable game? Yes, it is, because of where Sheffield United are and where they've been. But at the same time, results are needed. They're absolutely needed. And I don't think if Ismaël does lose the game, it should be reflected on him. I still think the squad's quite poor. And I will relay that. I don't think they're recruited particularly well, or at least it's going to take a long time for a lot of the players that they sign from abroad to really bed themselves in. And that's a problem, because you need results quite quickly in the Championship. Otherwise, you can find yourself playing catch-up, and that's what they're doing.
Well, that's what we were saying when we were reviewing the summer transfer windows of each club, weren't we? Blackburn have lost a lot of experienced players who were the core of their squad last season, who finished not far outside the playoffs. And you're right, defensively, they have been pretty solid this season. I'm just looking at their XG against. It's the 5th best in the Championship, which you wouldn't usually associate with a side who have lost 6 of their last 9. But as you say, the problem is going forwards. They've been dealt a massive blow because Todd Cantwell is injured and looks set to miss both games this coming week. And would it be fair to say Justin Blackburn are closer to a one-man team than any other side in the Championship? I would say so. And Cantwell is definitely that one man. So big problems for them going forwards. And if they had a bit more of a bite about them, they could have got a big win against Coventry this past weekend. Stoke up to 3rd after a 1-0 win over Wrexham. 3-word reviews for Stoke. Nick on our Patreon says back on track. Dave says league's best defence. Kieran says promotion dark horses for Wrexham. Randy on our Patreon says piss poor performance. Wrexham TN says damn. Mark Robbins' men still flying high, Justin.
Yeah, and it's built on solid foundations. As I say, they've got the best defence in the league, or conceded the least in the division. I do have to say, though, they didn't impress me an awful lot in this game because they didn't create a lot of clear-cut chances, and they scored via a cross that evaded everybody. Not criticism, because defensively they were very impressive. Ashley Phillips was superb against Kiefer Moore. But you can only build on solid foundations, which Stoke are doing. Could have been different if Ryan Longman didn't miss what was pretty much an open goal. And I think,
God, flipping heck! You talk about miss of the season contenders. Jesus Christ!
Yeah, we've had some this weekend. Obviously, not going to talk about them. Southampton one was probably worse over the weekend. But yeah, Ryan Longman really needs to put that away. And as I say, it could have been a different game had he done that. I think better decision making is needed for Stoke in the final third. But you can only credit them because they are building on solid foundations, which is what Mark Robin teams do. They really do. They create a strong side, a strong defensive side, and they allow individuals to thrive, which we're seeing it with Sorba Thomas because he's been brilliant this season. And they just need to do a little bit more in the final third, and maybe those wins will become even more emphatic.
Yeah, you mentioned the wins. This is their first in 5, so it goes to show that they haven't been brilliant recently, despite being up to 3rd. And to be honest, I haven't been particularly impressed with Stoke this season, despite them being 3rd. It's something I've said a lot, and it's obviously not changed much with them only winning 1 in 5. This game against Wrexham, Wrexham were really poor. If Ryan Longman had a bit more composure about him, it could have been a bit different. So, yeah, I can't say my mind is being shifted that much on Stoke. You talk about how they're built on solid foundations because they have considered the fewest goals in the division. They're also the side outperforming their XG against the most in the division. So it's no surprise to see Victor Johansson once again at the top of the charts for goals prevented. The underlying data perhaps not reflecting as good a picture as Stoke fans may be thinking. They're getting the results. That's the main thing. And maybe any fears I had about them being in danger of going down at the start of the season were misplaced. But Stoke have also faced just 3 sides so far in the top half of the table. So I wouldn't expect this strong start to last, put it that way, Justin. I don't know if you've got something to throw back at me there.
No, I'll let the Stoke fans do that online.
No, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure they'll let me know in great abundance. And we'll finish off with Oxford, who got just their 2nd win of the season by beating Derby 1-0. 3-word reviews for Oxford. London Yellows says destroyed diabolical Derby. Lee says Derby going down. For Derby, Dwayne says slaughtered by Oxford. George says very fucking shit. Yeah, you know what, George? I'm not going to disagree with that assessment. Derby were appalling. We'll make that perfectly clear. But at the same time, I was very impressed with Oxford, which I haven't been too often this season, Justin.
I've got to say, this is the perfect Gary Rowett performance because he's done his homework, basically. He's done his homework because what they did was what a lot of teams have been doing to Derby, which is absorb a bit of pressure, absorb the physicality that they're going to throw directly into your box, and just break and just counter. The only thing I can criticise Oxford on here, because it really was one of those near perfect games, was they should have won this 4-5-0. That's not exaggerating. They should have won it 4 or 5-0, which would have been catastrophic for a Derby team who have invested a lot more money than Oxford this past summer. So yeah, a lot of praise for Oxford. They were well structured. They did their homework. Game plan was perfect, and they battered Derby.
Yeah. Absolutely spot on. The only thing preventing this game from being a 4-0 or 5-0 was Jakob Zetterstrom in the Derby goal. He was brilliant, but he was also the only Derby player who came out of this with any credit because they were so bad. But I want to focus on Oxford because I was so impressed with them, particularly 21-year-old Stanley Mills on the wing, who I only learned this weekend is the son of Danny Mills. I don't know if you know that, Justin, but that was a nice little surprise for me. Brian De Keersmaker in midfield, brilliant. Cameron Brannigan, brilliant, always is whenever Oxford play well, as was Jack Curry at left-back. He was really, really good as well. So, yeah, very good showing from Oxford. I would still remain worried about them in the long term and whether their squad has the overall strength to stay up, but they were possibly the side I was most impressed with this weekend. Them or Hull, probably, although there was Middlesbrough on Friday, I guess, as well. So either way, Oxford were very good and Derby definitely weren't. Go on, Justin, I could tell you're desperate to rip into Derby.
No, I'm not actually, because I've been saying the same thing for the past few weeks. Derby, I think, are in a lot more trouble than people probably make out, because I don't think Eustace is getting anywhere near enough out of this team. I think his game plans are all wrong, and defensively, especially on transition, as Oxford exploited, they're weak. They're really, really weak. And whilst I do think, I was impressed by their summer transfer activity, because they've gone from Nathaniel Mendez-Lang to Ben Brereton Diaz in one summer. They did fail to recruit a ball-playing central midfielder and a playmaker in the final third, which ultimately they're paying for now. So, yeah, there's a lot of question marks around Derby, a lot of question marks around John Eustace. There's been a lot of upheaval as well in backroom staff. Head of youth development's left, head of recruitment's left. So that's interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add, because just before the break, Derby had their most impressive showing of the season against Southampton, and they followed it up with this. Yeah, not good. I find it difficult to highlight anything that was particularly bad in this game, because it was just the whole thing, really. It was just so shocking all round, and I really struggle to put my finger on what is the one issue that is the problem here, because John Eustace, I still stand by it, one of the best managers in the division, and Derby had an unbelievable summer of recruitment, yet they look really bad right now. So yeah, it needs to be a lot better. They've got Norwich at home on Tuesday, which, as we said earlier, a big game for both sides, but Derby surely need to be looking at a win there. Justin, so that's been the action from across the weekend. It's now time for the polls, and this is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, because we want to get their thoughts on everything going on from across the Championship. So the first question we asked was this: who has been player of the season so far in the Championship? Hayden Hackney, Ollie McBurney, Jayden Philogene, or Victor Torp?
Oh, I will go Victor Torp.
I think we've got to, haven't we? Because he's been the best player in the best team so far this season.
Yeah.
I could have picked just 4 Coventry players there, really, could have done as the options. But I went with Torp because I think he just about edges it over the others. 35% of people said Torp, 23% said Ollie McBurney, 21% for Hayden Hackney, 21% for Jayden Philogene. Who would you rather be the manager of, Bristol City or Norwich City?
Ben Napper's your boss, Bristol City. But then again, you've got John Lansdowne as your boss, or Steve Lansdowne. I can't remember which one it is, dad or son. I don't know. I'd go Bristol City. I prefer to live in Bristol than Norwich.
Ooh,
that's
an interesting take.
Yeah,
that's a very controversial take. I lived in Norwich for several years. My favourite city to live in. Bristol, I've been to a lot because I've got friends down there. Also a very nice city. Don't know which one I prefer over the other, but Norwich is a bit smaller, so maybe I'll choose Norwich. That's not really the question, though, is it? Who would you rather be the manager of? I mean, I know recency bias is obviously going to be at play here, but I think I would choose Norwich because they've just got more resources to them and recent Premier League experience. But yeah, when Ben Napper, ultimately Liam Manning is having to work with what Ben Napper's given him, and it's not great. So with that being said, I don't really know. 68% of people said Bristol City, 32% said Norwich City. And finally, what do you prefer, roll-on, spray or natural?
Natural, fucking hell. Who's going to admit that?
You'll be surprised.
Can I go rogue here?
All right.
And I think we've discussed this before. I use roll-on and spray.
that's just excessive. Completely unnecessary and very wasteful at the same time.
Yeah, probably terrible for my house atmosphere as well. God knows what I'm inhaling, but yeah, I use Dove roll-on and a bit of body spray as well to give me a bit more spruce, if you like.
Well, there you go. Justin, the least sweaty man in the world, because he's just full of antiperspirant and roll-on deodorant. Yeah. I have for a long time been spray. I did have a brief flirt with roll-on earlier this year, but it wasn't for me. So
You're
I've
a very
gone
hairy
spray.
man, aren't you? So I imagine
I'm a very hairy man, so the roll-on,
yeah,
it's not ideal.
Yeah.
64% of people said spray, 31% said roll-on, only 5% said El Naturel. You'll be surprised to hear. I bought some deodorant the other day. The cans they're doing now, Justin, the antiperspirant cans, they're bloody huge.
No, they're not. They're tiny. They cost like £6 as well.
Wait there. You keep talking for a sec.
This is not an ad. Ryan, I think, has gone to get a deodorant bottle from his bedroom because
I'll hide the sponsor because they're not getting free advertising on my account. Look at the size of that bugger. It's huge. XXL. I'm trying to put it up against my forearm to give it some sort of depth. But they're bloody huge. What 5 years ago or so, they made the spray cans really small, didn't they? And they said, it's compressed. They've given up on that idea very quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know really what compressed deodorant is, but fair play.
I always thought it was bollocks. It's Big Pharma trying to sell lies to us once again, because that was a load of shit. Yeah. And now they've gone to the bloody big cans. Yeah. The state of it.
You're going to need a big can, aren't you? Because you're in a shower once a week, you smelly bastard.
I don't. That's what? No, it's just not true at all. It's just complete and utter bollocks. But yeah, deodorant cans getting out of control, I say. Did I do the result of the polls? I did, didn't I? Good. That's the polls, ladies and gents. And this has been the Second Tier Podcast. If you're a Patreon subscriber or a YouTube community member, don't go anywhere. We've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call some more time. We'll be talking about Joe Bellingham's struggles over at Dortmund, popcorn, and Fabio Barini. If you're not a Patreon subscriber, sign up to get Zamora Time in every single weekend show. And for YouTube members, your Zamora Time is available exclusively to you as the next video uploaded to the channel. If you're not signed up yet, audio listeners can head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. And for YouTube viewers, just hit the join icon right next to the subscribe button on our channel page. But that's just about time for us here on the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Thursday to talk about all the midweek action from across the Championship. So we look forward to seeing you then for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks.
Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.